Hi, I'm Kate and I make junk journals, and today we're finishing our folio and our cover, and we're also making this really cool panel with a never-ending fold-out paper notepad. You guys, we have worked for freaking ever on this journal, and today we're gonna totally finish the insides, and then next week we can do the cover, and then we're gonna be all done. And I'm not gonna lie, this is a really cool journal. Super proud of it. So for those of you who come around here all the time, you totally know all about this journal. And we basically just made a little folio fold out for the front and back, and we're still working on the back. So let's finish that up. And the parts that we have to do still are behind this little booklet. That is blank, and we can't have that. Boring. And then we also have the part underneath, which is also a horrible disgrace, just a weird little empty leftover piece over there. So let's quickly make these beautiful so that our journal can be all glorious. Oh, I also forgot. We have to do underneath too. Well, I guess that means we'll be doing 3 little panels today. And our goal is to keep them flat. I'm very bad at doing that, so we'll see what happens, which is why I usually leave doing my cover until the very last. Then I can make the inside and the guts as fat as I want, and I can totally make a cover to match. But because I'm adding so much to the cover, and because I just kind of did it in a weird order, because let's face it, I'm not that consistent, I'm now having to kind of fight against the bulk, because when I have my finished journal, I want it to be horizontal and have these be parallel and not like that, because that is an ugly book and this is a beautiful book. So this is an alligator mouth, and around here we don't do alligator mouths. So let's get busy and start creating something. Here's another little secret confession I have. I have no idea what I'm doing today. Last night I sat down and was like, let's get prepared. And then my kids were doing something fun and I did that instead. And so today I'm gonna craft from the free spirit of my heart. So let's see what happens. I'm not just going totally rogue. I do know I need to make some flat, simple pages and finish it off. So let's do this. I'm gonna take all the guts and set them aside. And let's start with back here. Because this panel is already super exciting and explosive and layered and thrilling, we can be really boring with this. Let's look through my pile of stationery and just random papers. Okay, good. Let's use this one with pink lines, which is really cute. Except for let's get one that's less wrinkly. And I'm gonna just take this scratch piece of paper and flip it sideways. And I'm thinking I'll make a little pocket, and then we'll fold this over, and then this can kind of flap out, which is still pretty flat, but it'll just add some more fun because we don't want the fun to stop. So I'm gonna size it up first just by folding it and kind of sliding it around until I get a nice 1/4-inch border around either side. Fold that down, grab my Beacon Fabri-Tac glue, and then I'm just gonna glue those 3 sides. Kind of placing it closer to the bottom than the top so that I can have a little something peeking out of that pocket. And press that down, and now we have a little flip open pocket. And that really expanded our writing space because now we have a whole another 2 layers to write on, when if we just did something flat, we would only have that much. For the tag, I'm just gonna take this little leftover piece of scrapbook paper and measure out kind of how deep I want it. And I don't want it sticking out past this top part of this panel. So I will just kind of bend a little mark right there where I want that to be cut. And we'll slip that out, and then I'll just cut right where that little crease is. Then I'm gonna round the corners just so that it looks more like a tag and less like a leftover piece of scrapbook paper. And then we can write on that back side too, and we've got a cute little design there, and we will stick that in, and that adds just a little pink, a little color, a little cuteness, a little fun. And if we wanted, we could add some cute little decoration-y stuff. Let's do it on the inside right there. We'll just put this little sticker, keeping it nice and simple, but then there's still like a little bit of cuteness and design on that page. So let's go ahead and close that up. And now we're gonna work on the underneath panel, which to cover this up, I think I'm just gonna do a big old side pocket right there so that we don't really see this little envelope piece. So to add more writing space, but make it still look a little bit more dimensional and textured, I'm gonna use a piece of scrapbook paper that has some digital layers. So this has a little postcard on it with a piece of tape over a floral background. That way I have writing space, but there's still like design and texture, but I don't have to add any more bulk. Now normally I like to add my own layers and I don't like to have digital layers, but sometimes you just need a flat page. And so we're gonna go ahead and borrow this. And if you don't have a layered either digital printout or a piece of scrapbook paper, you could just do a textured piece of paper that you could still write on. Something like this, where there's like a fun little pattern, it's slightly pink, it's not boring, but you could totally write on that and see it just great. In fact, I actually like this better. I'm gonna do this instead. No offense, little postcard. So you can do either kind, but for this, especially because of the shape of what I need to cut out, I actually think this will look better. So I'm going to measure how deep I want my pocket to be. This is gonna be a side pocket here, so I'm gonna glue these 3 edges. So if I move it up here, then I'm not gonna have a lot of space for my card underneath to stick out, which is totally fine. Or I could give it a little bit more room and then we'd be able to see the layers a little better. Or I could put it all the way over here so we really see that card stick out, but it won't be as securely in. So I think I'm gonna go about 2/3 of the way in and put it right there. And I'll just make a little mark right at the edge of that so I know where to cut. Okay, and now I'll just measure the height. I'm gonna go just barely to where the crease is, not right on it, so that there is a little room for it to bend and it won't get like crumpled in there or too bulky right on the edge. So we'll give it just a little tiny border right there and then a little bit of a border to the top as well. So I'll just kind of pinch crease it where I want to cut it, slice that off, and now we can glue it here, here, and here to make that pocket. Line that up close to the edges, but letting there be a little border all the way around and a little bit bigger of a border right there. And you could either kind of put in one bigger thing or you could put 2 little things kind of sideways, and that's what I'm gonna do. So I have these 2 little cards and I'm just gonna stick them in right here, kind of staggering them so that they kind of cover up that undecorated part and add some color. And we're just gonna put some random stuff in the corner, especially because this bottom panel, while you can see like the little shoe and card underneath it, it is quite blank. So I feel like we need some embellishments to spice up this page. And I'm just gonna grab, here's a little sticker, put it near the top. Then I'm gonna grab these flamingos because they seem a little random but cute. And this journal is a little bit random and cute, so it kind of fits the theme. We'll just stick it right on top of there, creating some layer. And then I'm gonna use a little phrase. See possibilities everywhere. And we'll see if we can find a spot where we think that looks good. Right there. So we got our little random cluster in the corner, adding some layer and design. That's kind of my go-to thing for making a page look cuter. Just grab 3 random things that colors complement each other, have one of them be a word and one be more of like a picture, like a butterfly or flamingos, and then something that just kind of adds some color and texture. And that seems to work out pretty nicely. Okay, so we like plowed through those first 2. Look at us. Good job, us. So now let's do this bottom page, which kind of might be fun to do something a little more creative. So let's think for 1 second. Oh, I have an idea. Let's see if this works. It should be fairly flat, but still layer and interactive. And I haven't really done anything quite like this before. Although, let's be real, I pretty much do 3 things and repeat them over and over again in slightly different ways. But I haven't done this exact thing, and so I'm kind of interested. Okay, let's figure this out. My idea is to put a piece of scrapbook paper, mainly because I want to cover up all this boring brown, and we'll put it there, and then we'll put a couple of different pieces of writing paper or stationery and roll them out. So let me show you what I mean. First step is to make this paper the same size as this back paper, or just slightly smaller. So bringing it right there pretty close to the edge, leaving a tiny bit of a gap, and then we can measure to the end of that, and I do want to be kind of flush with the edge of that. Okay, and then we're going to measure to have this be about the same height as this, so I'm going to roll that up until it matches close to that. Do a little pinch. Okay, so now we have this, and that is roughly the size of that. I totally could turn this into a pocket, but I'm not going to, and mainly because of what I'm gonna do to the cover. So let's just glue this totally flush on there, resisting the temptation to turn it into a pocket. I know it's hard, but we can do this. Okay, and I want to kind of make sure that this edge and the bottom are really glued all the way to the edge, because those are going to need to really be flush to the edge so that they don't start peeling off. Stick that on there, and I'm going to pull this. The most important edges is this edge and this edge. to go, and go right up to that side, right along there. And there is like tiny bit, the back side is sticking up further than this scrapbook paper, but hardly so much you can't like hardly see it. But technically there is like a teeny border, just because I don't want this scrapbook paper sticking out further than the cover. So now I'm gonna take some random pieces of scrap paper that you can write on. So I don't wanna have it be one side patterned and then the other side blank. I want to be able to write on both sides so that I don't have to do anything to one of the sides. Okay, so I have a bunch of papers. Some of them are lined papers and some of them are avocado dye paper, and just like notebook paper, little papers from journals, things like that. And I'm gonna take some paper, and I'm going to just measure it to be with a little border on the top and the side, and then about an inch in. So I'll just pinch it about right there. And then before I just cut it right on that line, I want to have it be an easy measurement that I can use for my other papers as well. So that's really close to 4 inches. So we'll just make it 4 inches. So that's 4 inches, and I'm not gonna cut the bottom. I'm just gonna fold it, and I will fold it to be where it's about 1/4 inch from the bottom. And then I'm gonna just take my other papers that I for sure wanna use and cut some 4-inch strips of those as well. Okay, so I picked 4 different strips besides the original one that I picked, and I'm just going to glue them to each other, just like, you know, somewhere between 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch, have them overlap, and then just glue them all in one big long line. And then we'll press those together once that glue's on there, and then we'll glue the next pieces. So now we have a big strip of just writing paper that are all kind of different colors and textures and even different weights. Some of them are thicker than others. And then starting from the crease that we made earlier, because we know that that is the tallest we want it to be, I'm gonna come back through. I'm gonna make this crease to where there's just a very slight border so that the back page is sticking up a little bit. I make sure that these papers stay right on top of each other and it doesn't get crooked. Here, let's move this out of our way. So I've got our first paper and then our first fold up, and then I'm gonna flip this whole thing kind of over and up so I can make a crease down here. And same thing, I'm just gonna let there be a slight border so that it doesn't go all the way to the edge. Make sure that's laying pretty straight. Then I'll come back down, same thing, find a place that gives it just a slight border. And this one's gonna be a little bit difficult because it's kind of right on that spot that I glued. There we go. Then I'll flip it back up. Again, making those 2 bottom layers stick out a little bit more. Oops, make sure it's straight though. Let's recrease that. And then bringing this down, and that is gonna fit perfectly in there. That lucked out. So if you have extra, you can either fold it a little bit more or cut it to where it's the right size. So now we've just made this little accordion thing, but this isn't how I want it to be in the book. I just folded it that way so I would know where my creases are. Now I'm gonna go ahead and turn this so that it's folding up, and then I'm going to make sure each crease is going the same way to where I'm rolling it up. So you should have to change every other crease so that it rolls in a bundle instead of accordions up. But that way the creases are already there, and so you don't have to do any measuring, and you know that it'll line up nicely right inside there. So now what we have is like this fold open thing. So we'll roll this back up and we will glue this just totally flat right on this back panel so that when this is closed, it just sits there nice and closed and it's not gonna fall open, that accordion thing. But when it opens, this whole thing can just fall out and you'll have just like a crazy amount of writing space. So let's glue this in. Okay, so I'll just try to get about 1/4 inch on either side, except for this side, we'll do closer to 1 inch. Kind of make that semi-even on every side. And there we go, we've got this crazy amount of journaling writing paper, and it is a little blank, so let's spice it up a little bit. I'm gonna take some washi tape and just kind of stick a little bit where those two different papers are meeting. Maybe add a little something on top as well. So again, here's my go-to thing. This is going to be my focal point. This is interesting, but it's not quite bold and loud. And then this is just for like color and texture. So put those three things together and you got a little cluster. So let's glue those on. And then as you open it, I think that at least a few times you should find something fun in there. So let's roll this down a little bit. And somewhere in about the middle, I think, is where I want to add something else. And this is going to be my just texture and color right there. Then maybe a little flower for the shaped object. Ooh, and then this says happiness. Do those go good together? Maybe if we put that on the bottom. I'm sure there's a way, maybe like that. Let's do that. A little happiness, a little texture, a little flower. Okay, and then maybe we'll do one more thing at the very end. You know, if you get all the way to the very end, you certainly deserve to see something cute. So I have this little leftover book page with stamps on it, so that will add some texture. And then here's a little bit of color and this little word that says make a wish. So let's glue those on. There we go. And we've got a little something happening at the bottom too. So we'll roll this long crazy thing up, put it there, and maybe just for good measure, I'll use my favorite flower and add a tab. And because I'm only going to use one of these, I'm going to just chop off 2 petals like that. And then I will glue just these 2 petals, leaving the middle one unglued. And then this can be a little tab holding that in place, because this is a lot of paper to just spring out at you. So once that's dry, I'm just going to lift that little center one without bending or creasing it. And then that can fit there, and that's my little tab. And then that can hold all those papers up. And then that can go down, and we totally did it. We did the whole book, except for the cover. So we'll do the cover next time, and then also in the signatures, and this book will be ready to go. I can't believe how long that we've been working on this book. This is the same one as my 5-panel fold out. This is definitely a beautiful work of art, and I'm super proud of it. And I know that there's some of you who are making this whole thing along with me, which is super exciting. And if you did make this, or if you've made anything from any of my tutorials, I would love to see it. You can email me at katesjunkjournals@gmail.com, or you can just tag me on Instagram at katesjunkjournals. Please like, comment, and subscribe. The more you like and comment on my videos, the more other people see them. And I would also really appreciate if you wanted to share any of my tutorials on social media. Thank you guys so much for all your amazing comments and your overwhelming support. It's so fun crafting with you guys, and I love seeing what you guys make. So I'll see you next week when we finish it all up.